What's up, guys? Rick here with your betting and one and done preview for this week's Waste Management Open. So in this video, I'll be going through my simulated results of this golf tournament, comparing them to the odds that are available. We'll look at some head-to-head matchups. We'll talk through some one and done options, and we'll get you out of here. Remember, on Wednesday, there are 2 live chats on the Rick Run Good YouTube channel. There is the 3 p.m. Eastern Time live chat that's ownership, daily fantasy bets, anything you want to talk about. And then 8:15 p.m. Eastern Time is the Jock Market Power Hour. It's stock market DFS. It's fun. It's awesome. And there is a huge deposit bonus this week because it's Super Bowl week. So really big week in that world as well. So join me for that. But otherwise, yeah, let's get to it. Let's kick this off with my simulated results. And quite honestly, this was a pretty tight simulation. You know, a lot of weeks we get somebody in the 10%, maybe 12% chance to win the golf tournament. The highest win percentage that I got in these simulations was Justin Thomas at 7.5%. And if you're aware of what his odds are, and he's going to win this golf tournament 7.5% of the time, he's unbettable, right? Because the odds would indicate that he's going to win it closer to 11.5% of the time. So while he still has the largest share, his share is not necessarily good enough to be able to bet, at least by simulation results. Of course, we can go through anecdotally and we can talk through some of the pros and cons of this simulation and things like that. But this event was simulated 1,000 times. I actually did get a fairly even distribution of outcomes, which might be a bit indicative of some of the scoring here and how stable it has been, how the closing stretch of holes can create a bit of chaos though, right? Like the winning score has been stable, but you can get a little bit of chaos in the last 5 holes or so. So when the simulation looks at those birdie bogey rates for like the par 5 15th, 16 is just a very, you know, without the fans, right? A very straightforward par 3. Then you have the drivable par 4 with water on the left. So, I mean, there are fireworks down the stretch, and I think that's being reflected at least a little bit in some of the chaos and some of the even distribution that you might be able to see. Xander Schauffele coming in kind of second here, right? Winning this golf tournament 5.2% of the time in my simulations, above Rory, above Rahm, above Webb Simpson. That to me is a breakthrough. You know, I don't think I've seen Xander's win share this high. I'd have to go back and look at other past simulation results. I don't remember Xander coming in this high, and I really do think it is an indication of the fact that he has really been on this unstoppable run of golf. He hasn't won, but he's done everything but win. He just essentially broke through at a golf course last week that he hasn't had a lot of success at, Torrey Pines. Now he goes to a course where he does have decent results. So I understand why the simulation is almost giving Xander an extra nod, almost saying you broke through, you exercise some demons at Torrey Pines, and now you are getting the benefit of the doubt moving forward, which is kind of an interesting thing to see in action. If you want to talk in terms of value here, so when you compare my simulation results to the actual likelihood that a golfer is going, or the odds makers imply that he's going to win the golf tournament, you know, Joel Damon actually pops up as quote unquote the best value. Now, I have him winning this 1.3% of the time, which is still very little, but odds makers have him winning about half of that, 0.6% of the time. So that would be the biggest value. There is movement, or at least indication for me, that someone like Harris English or someone like Sam Burns might be a really good bet. You know, Harris English is just a couple of starts removed from a victory. I have him winning the simulation 3.7% of the time. Odds makers 3.4%, so just a tiny bit of juice there. And then Sam Burns is really interesting because, you know, he has burned a lot of us, right? Fantasy players, with the way he opened up at the American Express, but he played phenomenal on Friday, still missed the cut there. Played great for 3 days last week, got himself in the final group at Torrey Pines before kind of imploding. So he's played, 6 rounds. 4 of them have been awesome, really awesome rounds. 2 of them have been terrible. So the simulation looks at the upside, right? How if he puts 4 rounds together, what does that upside look like? Which is why you see him coming in, just below Matthew Wolff, same same winning odds as Siwoo Kim for this week because of that upside. So I understand it, and if you're betting pure outrights, someone like a Sam Burns is incredibly interesting because of that volatility. Now, is he going to go out and shoot a 77 in the opening rounds again? I don't know. Highly unlikely, but it's the good stuff when he's on is really, really good for Sam Burns. So I'll be, always straight up with you. The simulation didn't find a lot of value this week. Now what I noticed when I was looking at the betting board is a couple of things. I think that, I don't know that. Maybe odds makers are really trying to take advantage of the money that's going to be wagered on the Super Bowl this week. There's going to be a lot of people in the app trying to figure out what's going on, placing a lot of bets for this week. And I noticed that a lot of, not the top guys, but basically after the top 10, 12 guys in the field, the odds were really long. And we'll talk about some of those guys who don't have a lot of win equity, but I think their numbers are still much too long. So anecdotally, as we kind of move over to the betting board a bit, and I'll just pull up DraftKings here. I'm not affiliated with DraftKings. I don't even live in a state that I can make wagers on DraftKings. I usually go through William Hill or Circa, or I go down to one of the casinos and place a bet or whatever. But just for reference, just so I have it easy, because I like the way they display the odds here. You have your top guys. You have your Rahm, your Thomas, your Xander, your Rory, your Webb. That's kind of tier 1. And then you have just a small tier 2. And then you start getting into like the 50s very quickly, the 70s very quickly. Scrolling down, there's a guy I want to talk about who's still 175 to 1 or 200 to 1. So let's look at this board a little bit. Anecdotally, I've focused on Webb Simpson. Remember the positive COVID test. He was working back from that. He was getting back into shape. He gets to Waialae. He probably should have ran away with that golf tournament, still finishes in a tie for 4th. Obviously, Webb is a great fit for TPC Scottsdale. He's going to defend his crown here this week. Also, I think anytime we're going to get this number right here, the Zalatoris at 50 to 1, and maybe I can zoom in on this, make it a little bit easier to read. The Zalatoris at 50 to 1 number, go back, watch the DFS video. I am just an absolute big-time believer in this kid. He's going to win. I don't know if it's here, but if they're going to keep hanging 50s and they're going to keep giving us, what is this? 5 to 1, 4.5 to 1 for the top 10 number. I'm going to continue to hammer that. I do like this. I think I like the Sam Burns outright number more than I do his fantasy prospects for this week. It was kind of a similar story to Brooks Koepka last week. Now, Brooks Koepka crashed and burned last week, but we knew that was in the range of outcomes, right? And we know that's in the range of outcomes for Sam Burns. A lot of missed cut equity, but he does have, I don't know what I would want to call this, final group equity, right? I mean, he was in the final group last week. So that to me is much riskier and much better suited for an outright than it is for a DFS or like a one and done or something that you want to make sure you get a lot of money from. There's going to be a lot of steam on Henrik Norlander. This number hasn't moved since it opened. So it opens at 125 to 1. Go back, watch that DFS video. Henrik Norlander, second in strokes gained tee to green last week. He finished second. He finished 12th the week before. He's going to be one of the more popular golfers on the slate. So kind of the inverse of how I feel about Sam Burns. I would rather, no, I guess it's the same as I feel about Sam Burns. I'd rather bet it than play him in an outright or play him in a DFS lineup, because DFS, I care about game theory, right? I care about how many other people are going to own him. I care that if he's going to miss the cut and he's going to be 25% owned and how that impacts my lineups. But for an outright, especially because this number hasn't moved, I don't care if other people are getting in on 125. I don't care if other people are getting in on 18 to 1 to finish inside the top 5. I don't care if other people are getting in at 8 to 1 to finish inside the top 10. As long as that number moves, I don't really care. So a similar situation where I'd rather take Norlander here than play him on DraftKings or in any of my other lineups. But this to me, and I kind of teased this a bit on the DFS video, this to me, Sebastian Munoz 175 to 1 is the most egregiously wrong number. Now, pump the brakes and realize that his number should probably be like 80. It should probably be 80 to 1. So it still only means he's going to win 1.5% of the time, something like that. But that is, his number's twice as long here. So it is still a very small chance that Sebastian Munoz wins this golf tournament, but this number is probably twice as long as it should be. You know, I pulled just the raw strokes gains numbers. So not the measured events, every single round. And I was looking since the restart. And I said, okay, who are the guys who've been the best since the restart? Sebastian Munoz was 8th in strokes gained total. All rounds, not measured rounds, 8th. He's being priced as like the 60th best golfer. This is very clearly the most incorrect number. It will probably not come to fruition because it's golf, it's volatile. These are all still long shots, but that number is very wrong. And I hope that Munoz comes in and cashes it because I'll have a 175 ticket. And then you go for, I mean, there are names down here that I would be interested in. You know, Doc Redman, I'm always going to be interested in Doc. Doc's had a couple of poor weeks in a row. He made the cut at the American Express, didn't do much after that. He misses the cut at Torrey Pines. He lost strokes putting, 2 strokes putting in the only round that we had measured for him. Now his salary is depressed on DraftKings. His odds are depressed. He's now 200 to 1. This is a guy who has multiple top 10 finishes this season already, who relies on his ball striking. We know that TPC Scottsdale begs for approach players. So, 40 to 1 to finish inside the top 10, 16 to 1 to finish inside flip that. 40 to 1 to finish inside the top 5, 16 to 1 to finish inside the top 10 is absolutely bonkers. Richie Wawrinski, he was a winner last year. Denny McCarthy's trying to figure it out a little bit. I'm just so surprised. Matthew Neesmith, 300 to 1. Again, normally when I come on to DraftKings and I start getting down into these really scrubby guys that I never want to play, you're talking about 200 to 1. You're talking about 250 to 1. It would be unreasonable for me to find somebody that I'm actually interested in throwing a couple of dollars on at 175, 200, 250, 300. That would be insane to me. So I don't know if it is Super Bowl related, but I just noticed a ton of really long numbers this week that probably won't come in, but I will certainly be sprinkling because I don't remember seeing it like this before. All right, let's do some matchups. One of my favorite tools on the entire site. This uses the raw strokes gain number so we don't miss any single round. And it looks at how often one golfer is going to beat another golfer in a 4-round matchup. So I'm looking through some of the options here, and immediately the one that jumps off the screen at me that I have to know the answer to is Webb Simpson versus Daniel Berger. These are 2 guys that I love. They are 2 guys I love this week. I'm interested to see how the model actually grades them out. So let's plug in Webb Simpson versus Daniel Berger. All right, so Webb is minus 118 on DraftKings. I have him at minus 126, winning this matchup about 55% of the time. So unfortunately, he gets the nod, but I don't think this is very bettable. Berger, he should be plus 126. He's minus 106. So the juice eats you up there. So unfortunately, that's not something you'd want to bet. I do like both of those guys this week. Here's another one. Jon Rahm versus Justin Thomas. The heavyweights. I mean, anytime you can get Justin Thomas at plus, or I guess it's even money, plus he's plus 100. You got to think that's pretty good, but wow, Rahm has just been that much better. So I have Rahm. He should be minus 120. He's minus 125. Justin Thomas, I have him should be plus 120. He's plus 100. So again, juice eats you alive. You can't bet this. I'm stunned to see that Jon Rahm has been essentially that much better than Justin Thomas during this 1-year stretch that I'm looking at. Now I could go back further, but that is that's pretty incredible. That's good stuff there. Let me see if I can find one that we can actually bet. And I had to go deep, but this might be the one here. So John Huh versus Chris Kirk. I have Chris Kirk. He should be about minus 118. That's actually what John Huh is. So I actually think that the DraftKings has these 2 flipped, and Chris Kirk should actually be the favorite here. He should be 118, and John Huh should be the minus 106. So Not a ton of value out there, but Chris Kirk over John Hunt would be the one that I would be most interested in. Let's talk through some one and done. So in the run good one and done, we've got some movement at the top here. So a storm of Shanks, $600,000 lead over Brandon K9. Jay Key is in third. Keys open doors. I wonder if those two know each other. Key and Keys open. And then Rex Grant rounding out the top five for the season long standings. Then of course you can go down to the bottom here and you can see, segment 2, for example. Here I am. I'm lurking here in segment 2. I've moved up to 61st overall and I am lurking in segment 2. So I've still got some work to do, but I'm hanging around. Now most of you, we started this at the start of the season. So most of you are probably like, this is your 4th week, right? So in the big, fantasy, fantasy golf championships or carbon contests, those I've made 3 picks thus far, doing well at the moment, but we'll see how that goes. Obviously a lot of golf to be played. When we look at options for waste management, I think that Hideki is certainly going to be popular, right? When we start talking about who are good options for one and done across the entire season, Hideki at Waste Management, Webb at Wyndham, Rory at Eastlake, Patrick Cantlay at Shriners, DJ at Pebble Beach. It's almost guys you earmark for specific tournaments, and here we are. We're at one of those tournaments, so Hideki is certainly going to be viable, and he's certainly going to be picked a lot. Back-to-back wins for Hideki in 16-17, runner-up finish, another top 10, and a couple more top 20s. I mean, this is the guy, right? And I don't know if you really care about his lead-in form because, Hideki has kind of shown us that he flips switches, right? And it's almost impossible to predict when the good stuff's coming. It's almost impossible to predict when the bad stuff's coming. So I think Hideki's going to be very popular this week. I think that using Webb again is kind of an interesting strategy if you have him available. Although you might have used him at Sony. But if you have Webb available, I think there's going to be a lot of people who opt to use Webb at Wyndham, like I said, which I think is a good spot. If you're not going to use him here, you should probably use him at Wyndham. Or even like RBC Heritage, something like that. I'm considering using Webb here. I'm like pretty sure he's going to win this golf tournament. like if he does it, I just think he just never plays himself out of anything. And you look at Rahm, Xander, JT, Rory, the guys above him, kind of want to save those guys, right? Kind of want to give Rory more time to figure it out. JT, who's coming off a miscut, you could roll him out literally any major, any WGC, get those big bucks. Same with Xander, same with Rahm. So I think it's viable to play Webb here, but I think in a vacuum, maybe the smartest play, like if you wanted to save Webb, if you thought that his expected value was better elsewhere, and you could kind of make it up, play a little money ball, Bubba Watson might be the guy. And I spent a lot of time talking about him in the DFS preview because he's been hitting it so well off the tee. He's been hitting his irons really well. And we always talk about Bubba tracks, right? We know the courses. It's TPC River Highlands. It's Genesis, which is in 2 weeks. And it's, Augusta National. Now, you're not going to use Bubba at Augusta National, right? Because he's not that type of player anymore, and you want to get all your money at the Masters. So you rule that out. So a lot of people just end up using Bubba at Riviera, which again, there's a lot of big names there. Probably don't need to play Bubba. Or at TPC River Highlands, which is where everybody uses Bubba. Well, you could use other guys at TPC River Highlands. There's going to be plenty of them later in the summer. But without a victory, Bubba's been unbelievable here. He's been piling up top 10s. I think he has 2 runner-up finishes. He finished 3rd and 4th the year before. So if you want to get Bubba on a Bubba track, which you do, and you want to get him coming in decent form, which he is. I mean, he missed the cut last week, but still gained strokes off the tee in his 1 round at the South Course. This might be the spot. So I will probably not take Hideki. I will probably take either Bubba or Webb, depending on my situation, depending on what I'm trying to accomplish. But those are really some intriguing plays, I think. So yeah, let me know what you think. Who are you taking? Tweet me at RickRunGood. leave a comment below. Best of luck this week. I'll talk to you guys soon.